Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a really long time since I posted. Unfortunately, life just got super busy, but I did want to come back and do a video on my book review pretty much for my goal this year, which was to read one book a month or just 12 books in general this year. So when I started the whole thing, it was really just because I had stopped reading over the years, and growing up I loved reading. I read all the time. In college I read a lot outside even of what I was reading for school, but then really I just stopped after that. Life got too busy and just other things became priority. So I realized in 2017 that it had gotten really bad because I had received a book for Christmas 2016 and didn't finish it till 2017. So I think I maybe read a chapter or two and then really just didn't read it at all for a whole year. And it's my favorite author, Patricia Cornwell. So that just seemed crazy to me that I waited that long to read the newest book from my favorite author. So it didn't sit well with me. I missed reading, missed doing something that I enjoy, something for myself. So I decided in 2018 that I was going to read a book a month. So when I picked my first book, I didn't really have a theme in mind. It was really just picking a book, and I picked a book that I had not read myself before, but growing up in school had it read to me by one of my teachers. Just the whole class is kind of something we did every day after recess. And the reason I wanted to read this one again is I really liked the book, and also because they were making a movie of it, and so I kind of just wanted to read up before I watched the movie. So that first book is A Wrinkle in Time. A lot of you are probably familiar with this book. It's very popular. They made a movie. I don't know how I feel about the movie. I was really excited about it, but the book itself is amazing. So Madeline L'Engle, I don't know if I'm saying that right, hopefully I am. That's the author. They have different, I believe different covers of what the book looks like, and I got the paperback, which you'll notice none of my other books are paperbacks or hardcovers. I prefer hardcovers, but starting out I bought this in paperback, not sure why. The Wrinkle in Time, it's kind of like I guess you could call it like a science fiction. It's not based in reality. A lot of it isn't. Some of it is, but it's a really good kids book. It's about a girl who her father goes missing and she tries to find him. She meets some interesting characters along the way that help her find her dad. And so it's really interesting, really short book. 230 something pages. So this is a good book if you just want to read something really quick. I think it's a good kids book to read to your kids once maybe they get a little bit older, old enough to hold the attention, because I tried reading this with my daughter and she wasn't really into it. So she's 7. So that was the first book. After January, I decided to do exclusively new release books. I'm not sure why I had that thought. I was maybe thinking that I wanted to read, you know, new things as opposed to reading things that I had already read, or, you know, books that were maybe older. So some of the books will be new releases immediately, like I read them within a week of them being out. Some, I think 4 weeks, and even one book I mistakenly thought it was a new release when it had actually been out for quite some time, maybe a year. Barnes & Noble's website showed it as a new release, and even the publication date was off, so my mistake. But the February book is The LastMissParrish. I did a review on this book. Actually, I believe it was one of my first reviews that I did. So I really like this book. It is Reese's book club. It's one of her books, and this is like a suspense thriller. It's about a woman who wants to pretty much be somebody else. She becomes friends with somebody kind of influences them, tries to put herself into this other woman's life. That includes her husband, children. I believe there's more than one child in the book. But really, it's just suspenseful. It kind of held my attention the whole time, and I really, really enjoyed it. I'm sure I'll go back and read it again several times over at some point. But what really drew me to it was the cover. Very pretty, geometric kind of prints. But this is a really good suspenseful book. If you like suspense thrillers like I do, psychological thrillers, it is a really good choice. And I do, just so you know, buy all my books at Barnes & Noble. I usually do research before I pick my book, and then I have a wish list. I save them all there, and then depending on the type of book I'm trying to read that month, then I'll make my decision. I want to tell you more about these books, but this video would be super long, so I'm just gonna tell you the books, a little bit of what they're about, and then kind of go from there. One interesting thing that I do want to mention is the authors. The pen name is Liv Constantine, I want to say. I don't think it's Constantine, it might be, but it's actually two sisters that wrote the book together. They lived, I think, far away from each other, different states, and they wrote this book together. So it's pretty amazing. It's a really great book, especially for having two different people writing it. So I wanted to make that point, but I don't want to make this video super long by going into too much detail. So the March book is a book that I had been waiting for a long time. I knew it was going to be coming out. I was really excited about it. I'm super into true crime, murder, suspense, that kind of thing. So the book that I'm talking about is I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. I did a review on this and actually other videos kind of about this. So if you've seen that, then you know what this is about. But this book is about the Golden State Killer, also known as the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker. It's true crime, so they're based on true events. Michelle McNamara is pretty much writing about what he did, the search for him, the things that were found, the different ways that they were trying to find him. And she actually passed away, I think, a year before the book came out. And her researchers, her husband Patton Oswalt, helped finish the book. And then it came out in March, and then they found the killer a couple months after. Maybe I was super engrossed in it, and there are new things happening now, but he was arrested. They found him through genealogy, which is one of the things she suggested in her book moving forward to try to find him. So this book is really just a really cool book, especially because they found him, and I feel like a lot of it had to do with the research she was doing, the stuff that she was finding. I can't say enough about this book. It's amazing. The cover art is really cool. So if you haven't read it, you should. There are a lot of things happening with this now that they've caught him, so you can definitely follow up on that. It's Joseph James D'Angelo is the guy that they caught, who was the Golden State Killer. So if you want to know more on that, there's a lot of information online, but that is probably my favorite book of the year. The next one I wanted to talk about is a really popular one, which is Girl Wash Your Face. I'm sure if you're a regular reader, you're familiar with this. It's by Rachel Hollis. I hope I'm saying that right. And she's a huge blogger. She's really big in the blogging world, motivational speaking, things like that. This book I would classify it as a sort of self-help book. I don't really like self-help books, but this really didn't read like one. That's why I liked it. I did a review on this one as well, so if you want to know more, I would check it out there. But it's really just for talking about the things that she believes. She calls them lies in the beginning of every chapter, and it's very specific to a certain principle. So she talks about the lie and then goes into why she doesn't believe it, why she shouldn't believe it, and why we shouldn't be ruled by those things. And so I really like this book. There are a lot of things that I took to heart in it, and I just think that it's a good book for anybody to read. It's fun, funny. I didn't feel like it was pretentious. A lot of people, I think, said that they didn't like it because they felt they couldn't relate, but I think really the underlining ideas of her chapters is what is relatable, maybe not how she's telling it or her experience, but I think that goes with really anything. So I really like this book. If you're into books like that, self-help-ish books, or you're not into them but you want to kind of see what they're about, this is a good one to start with. So this was April. This is a good book. And this is actually a Barnes & Noble exclusive. I think there are two different ones. There's one that has a yellow fire hydrant, and that's just like the regular one, and I think the one with the red is the Barnes & Noble exclusive. It has an extra chapter at the end. So if you are interested in that at all, then I would check it out at Barnes & Noble. Okay, we're almost halfway there. So this is the book, my May book, which was the book that I mistakenly thought was a new release. It wasn't. I'm so glad I picked it up. It was a really good book. I had never heard of it. And Paula Hawkins, she wrote The Girl on the Train. Never read the book, I watched the movie. I feel like if I followed her, I probably would have realized that it wasn't a new release, but I don't. So the book I'm talking about is Into the Water. It has this really cool cover art. But Paula Hawkins is the author. If you've read The Girl on the Train, then it's that same type of style of writing. Really suspenseful. You don't really know what's going on. You're kind of putting bits and pieces together as you're reading the story, which the suspense I think was the best part. The ending, I liked it, but then I sort of felt like there was a lot of build-up and it went somewhere completely different, which is fine. And really, I think when I read books, my favorite part is the suspense that builds over time, not necessarily the outcome unless I'm super invested in it, or depending on what type of book it is, right? But this was a good book. I really liked it. I recommend it. So I'm kind of glad that I mistakenly thought it was a new release, because otherwise I may not have read the book. They'll probably make it into a movie. That happens a lot with popular books like this, especially because she's had one made into a movie before. But I did do a review on this, again, mistakenly thinking it was a new release. So if you follow my channel, you can find it there as well. Alright, and if you haven't noticed already by my reviews of the other books, when I do these books, when I do my choices of books that I'm picking for the month, at least for the new releases, I try to find different types of books. Some suspense thrillers that I'm into, some true crime, books that I've been looking forward to, which I think really is just the one, Michelle McNamara's book. So I tried to pick other books that were in different genres, so not always suspense thrillers, even though those are my favorite. And maybe try something like a romance book, a self-help book as you saw, biographies, kind of picking different things so that it was varied, and then maybe also led me to want to read different types of books moving forward in the future. So that being said, my book for June is I don't know if you would call it a memoir. I guess you would call it a biography, sort of. So it's Rita. Pretty sure I'm saying that right. For a while I was saying Rita. That's not right, because Rita is spelled R-I-T-A, but I know people spell their names differently in different places. So, but I think it is Rita. So if you're familiar with Parks and Rec, she was on Parks and Rec, the Treat Yourself girl. So if you're not familiar with her, at least you probably know that saying. She's also on a show on NBC with Mae Whitman and I forget the other girl's name from Mad Men, but I think that's still on the air. I've never seen it. I wanted to watch it and I just never got around to it. But she's a comedian. That's how she started. And this is kind of her book talking about really from where she started to where she is now. It's super funny. It's called So Close to Being the Shit Y'all Don't Even Know. But it's super hilarious. She has this back cover kind of showing like pretty much being funny, like, look, we look great, but then when you look at the back, they're just engineering kind of what you're seeing. So I really like this book. It's really funny. I started following her on Instagram after this, because even though I liked her on Parks and Rec, I didn't really follow her, or a lot of people that I don't follow just because I watch their show. But I started following her after that, and her stuff is hilarious. She does daily stories. She's just making her coffee, just talking about her day, and it's so simple but so funny just because she's a funny person. So I really like this book. It's short, as you can see. It's not a very big book. So I definitely recommend this one. Alright, so we're halfway through. So I'm going through them really fast, but I just want to make sure that this video is not too long, which undoubtedly it will be. But let's go ahead and move on to July. So for July, I wanted to do something different again. I feel like I did that with the first 6 months, but kind of wanted to keep that going. So the next book that I picked, I really thought it was going to be more of a suspense thriller, but it actually turned out to be more of a romance. Inadvertently, I actually hadn't picked any romance books, as you can see. Not because I don't like them, but just because they're a very specific type of storyline, and I wasn't really maybe interested in reading that at the time. But the book that was my book for July is Ghosted. It has a really pretty cover, and this is by Rosie Walsh. And the cover really kind of spoke to me. When I saw the word ghosted, I really wasn't thinking about it in terms of, you know, the term people use nowadays when you ghost somebody, right? You disappear. I don't really know what I was thinking. I wonder if I was just thinking, oh, ghost, that's maybe suspenseful. But I was actually happily surprised when I started reading it. Realized it was a romance book, but it also did have some suspense as well. And what it is, it's about a woman who meets a guy. She falls in love with him, and then, as the title suggests, he ghosts her. And she spends a lot of time looking for him, right, and everything unravels from there. But I felt like it was really well written. This book is set in, I think it's not, actually, now that I think about it, it's based in England, and I think it was either fictional cities or, no, actually this was, it was based in real towns from what I remember. A lot of the times I've realized when I'm reading these books that sometimes it'll be set in a place that's supposed to be like, let's say England, like California, but the towns are fictional. I think in this book she actually used the towns and the cities as real places. So this is super interesting, and you can always tell when it's supposed to be set somewhere else because the language kind of changes. The words that are used are different than what words you commonly use, but I really liked it. I think she's a really good author. I think she's written other things, not all novels, but I really liked this book. It was cute, so I suggest reading this if you're interested in romance books that are a little bit different than just your straightforward romance. So that's for July. The next book for August. So I went back to my suspense thriller books. That's what I love reading, so it just made sense to go back to that. So the next book was A Noise Downstairs, and this is by Linwood Barclay. So I've never read his books, but apparently he's very popular. I thought the cover was really cool. The whole typewriter thing. I actually used to own a typewriter growing up. I'm not sure where my dad got it from, but it was really cool. So this book is about a man. He witnesses something terrible, and then because of that, he's injured, and he has issues with post-traumatic stress disorder, and just memory issues, things like that. He has a wife, an ex-wife, and a son, and really in the story he's trying to kind of put his life back together, trying to forget what happened, and there's a typewriter that pretty much is haunting him, and it's what kind of ties the whole story together, and it's super suspenseful because he starts really feeling like he's losing his mind. So it's really awesome. I really liked it. super suspenseful till the end, and it's probably one of my favorite books this year. Probably doesn't hurt that it is a suspense thriller, but I would definitely read this if you're looking for a really good suspense thriller. All right, so we're almost there. We have 4 months left. So September was kind of a crazy month. I went on a trip to Europe. We went to London and Paris. So I bought this book because I wanted to, right, it was my September book. I wanted to read it on the plane, on the train, whatever it is that we were doing. I ended up only really reading some of it when I came back from vacation in September. Life got super crazy, and I actually didn't finish this book till end of October. So I was actually really behind. So the last couple of books were really rushed, but I read them, so we made it. But this book was interesting on a different level. The book that I'm talking about is Unnecessary Roughness by Jose Baez. So if you're not familiar with Aaron Hernandez, who he is, he played for the Patriots, football player. He ran into some issues because I remember watching all of these specials on it, reading it when it happened. But really, he was going to be tried for 2 different things: the murder of one person, the double murder. And he, in his first trial, actually, I believe he did go to jail, and he wanted to appeal all of that. So he reached out to Jose Baez, who, if you guys don't know, is or was the attorney for Casey Anthony. If you don't know who that is, then I would suggest Googling it. But he's a very famous defense attorney, pretty much gets the job done from everything that I've seen. And he asked him to represent him, and he did. So unfortunately, at the very end, when they had some success, he ended up taking his own life. Some people believe that that's not what happened, but they did find him in a cell. He had hung himself. So that was tragic. Regardless of how you feel about him or whether you think he did it or not, of course that's just a very sad thing to hear. So it was super interesting reading this from Jose Baez's perspective. All the stuff he did as a lawyer, his ideas, his like the way that he did things, right, is super interesting. And I wish I could remember more of the details. I can't, so I'm sorry, I may be remembering it wrong. But I just know that he was being charged with 2 different crimes. And he was in jail at the time. They wouldn't give him bail. And I'm just trying to remember some more of the details, but I can't right now. But if you're looking for something more autobiographical, just not based in fiction, then this is what I would suggest. So super interesting, a good read, and it wasn't a very long book. Okay, so I did have to do some catching up. So I bought my October and November books at the same time, and I picked a romance one for my October book, which, as I said before, I had really only read one romance book, the Ghosted book, before. I was kind of moving away from that, but decided to actually go for a full-on romance. So of course, Nicholas Sparks came out with a new book. Really pretty cover, that's kind of what drew me to it. But this is Every Breath. If you don't know who Nicholas Sparks is, The Notebook, you probably know that movie, and if you don't, I would Google it. He's very, very popular romance writer. The Notebook being one of the biggest ones. A Walk to Remember, I believe, as well. So I'm sure this will probably turn into a movie someday. But this book is super interesting. I actually read it in less than 24 hours. It was really, really good. It's about a man from Africa vacationing in, I believe it was North Carolina, and he's there to meet his father, and he meets a woman on the beach. They spend an evening together and pretty much fall in love, and everything goes from there. There are other things that happen that I won't go into because it would just give too much away. But it's just super interesting, really kept your attention, and it was just a really fun book to read. I don't really know what else to say, but it was a good book. So if you love Nicholas Sparks and you haven't read it already, every breath. Definitely worth a read. For November, I went back to a suspense thriller type of book. What I read was by Lisa Jewell, and it's called Then She Was Gone. So again, on this book, the art on the cover really got me, as well, of course, as the description of the book, because when I do pick my books out on Barnes & Noble's website, I do read the descriptions to kind of see if it's something that I want to read. So the description along with this cover is what really sold me on the book. So this book is based in England, I believe, and it's really funny because when I started reading it, they would say maths instead of math. And when talking about I did my math homework, they would say maths with an S at the end, and it was super weird to me, and just because I've never said it that way. But I don't know if that's the thing from England. If you're from England and you know, please comment below, let me know. It's probably not that weird, it's just unfamiliar to me. But that was really interesting when I first started reading it, and because I was just there in England, they actually mentioned a couple of places that I went to Portsmouth. We visited while we were there, and it talks about it, as well as Nando's, which is a restaurant. We went there a couple of times, and it mentions it, so that was really cool for some weird reason. I just thought that was funny. But what this book is about, it's about a young girl. I believe she's maybe 16, around that age group, and she's working on passing some exams, math exams, and really kind of just her adult life just getting started, right? Making plans for school and things like that, just boyfriend, just all those things that typical 16-year-olds around that age are getting ready to do. And then one day she goes missing, and it's been years, and her parents find out that there have been new developments, right? And then the story kind of spins from there, and it kind of explains what's happened. It was very interesting. I did not foresee the ending as it was. I kind of thought that I knew it was going to happen, but at the last minute it kind of caught me off guard. It's well written. I feel like the characters were well developed, and it really captured my imagination. That's one thing that I really love about reading, is being able to imagine everything just myself, right? There are books that have movies made out of them, and then you watch the movies and kind of puts an idea in your head of what the character should look like, what their mannerisms are, all of that. And when you read, right, you get to kind of create that for yourself. And I feel like this book did a really great job of developing the characters and characterizing them and just giving them life, because I really feel like I imagined them very well in my head. The setting, what everything looked like. It was just a really great experience overall. So I would say this is my third favorite book of the year. So I'll Be Gone in the Dark, A Noise Downstairs, and then She Was Gone. Those are my three favorite, and of course they all fall under kind of the same umbrella of true crime-ish, mystery, murder, things like that. But that's just what I love, so it kind of makes sense. But this is a great book. If you're looking for a suspense book, this is a good read. Okay, so I was actually finally able to catch up once I got to that November book. I did read it in November. I finished it in November, which was great. I was able to then really look into what I wanted to read as my last book, which was kind of cathartic getting to the last book, right? Because I realized, well, this one book I'll reach my goal, and it seems like something so small, but it really meant a lot to me to be able to reach that goal, and then have 12 books now that I've read that I can go back to and read again or share with others, you know, things like that. So I really enjoyed that process. So for my last book, I gotta say that I didn't feel there were a lot of good books, of course, in December, but at least for my choosing, I didn't feel like there were a lot that I was super interested in when I was going through Barnes & Noble, looking at the summaries and things like that. So I picked this one initially, and by picked it I mean I put it in my wish list with a couple of others. initially because of the cover art. I thought it was really kind of eye-catching, and then I read the summaries and kind of thought about, okay, this is a little bit different than what I'm reading, so that's kind of why I chose it. But the book that I'm talking about is Pandemic by Robin Cook. As you can see, it's kind of like in your face, just wow, because of the yellow and the big words and all of that. But that kind of really caught my attention, and the word pandemic as well, for whatever reason. But this is actually a medical thriller. I don't know that I've ever read a medical thriller, or maybe Patricia Cornwell is my favorite author, and her books, her Dr. K. Scarpetta books, fall under probably similar to this. It's a medical examiner, and so it does kind of go into those things, but it does, I feel, kind of more fall on the crime thriller kind of genre. But so this felt slightly different to me, and that's kind of why I picked it as well, because I don't feel like I've actually ever read a medical thriller. So this was super interesting. It was, I feel like, a longer book than most, and at the beginning I felt like it was a little slow, a lot of medical, I don't want to say jargon, but just kind of probably filling that whole medical thriller thing out, and then once it got going, it was super suspenseful. It really did feel like we were doing detective work, kind of the way the story went. But what it's about, it's a medical examiner in New York City, and a woman dies on a train, and he gets the case, he does the autopsy, and then he finds things that are reminiscent of a pandemic, and he kind of falls down this rabbit hole, and he does a lot of investigative work. That's not something that a medical examiner does, but he was just so interested. Things going on at home with his wife, in-laws, and children, that kind of led him to find a distraction and really dig into why this woman died. And I don't want to say more because I feel like that would spoil it, but if you're into medical thrillers, if you like Robin Cook, I know he's written a lot of other books, I would suggest checking it out. Or if you're just looking for something different, I really liked this book. I'm not sure that I like the end, and if you read it you'll know why, but I just didn't feel like it tied everything together. It kind of just neatly ended, and I feel like I don't really like that. So the ending wasn't my favorite, but as I've said before, I feel like I really like the journey of reading books and my experience that I get along the way, because obviously that's the majority of the book is leading up to this point, and then from there, right, the stories usually end pretty quickly after that. So that part was great. I really liked that. I'm not sure if I'll continue to read medical thrillers, but I may, especially if the covers are as cool as this one and they catch my attention. But this was a December book. It was a good book. I would recommend it. And really I would recommend all of the books that I read. I don't believe that there were any books that I read this year that I absolutely hated or didn't like. I did really like them all, and it kind of goes with my process of how I pick them. I didn't really get recommendations from anybody, but I think that's also a great way to do it. I don't know that I had a lot of friends that were reading new releases at the time. Maybe that's why I didn't get any recommendations, but really the cover art is what drew me to a lot of these, the author on some of them, knowing the author, and then really reading the summaries, and of course making sure that there were new releases for the most part, kind of all of those things, putting a couple books on my wish list, going through them, and then kind of picking one depending on what kind of book I wanted to read that month, and also just kind of whatever feeling I got from reading the summaries. So that's really how I did my 12-month book goal. I'm sorry this review is super long, but there is a lot of information to cover, so I hope that you'll watch this video. And of course, if you like it, feel free to subscribe. I will try to do more videos this year. That's one of my goals. And also, of course, I have other videos some full book reviews for some of these as well as other things. But also wanted to let you guys know is I'm doing the same thing essentially this year, 2019. And this year I decided to go kind of in the opposite direction. So I did new releases last year, and this year I'm going to be doing classics. So really it's going to be classics that are new to me. So growing up in high school, I read a lot of classics. In college, I read some classics. And so I really wanted to read books that I haven't read that I know are very popular. You know, people talk about Three Musketeers, and I have no idea because I've never read it. Obviously I know the story, but I've just never read it myself. So I wanted to read a lot of those books. And so I'm reading books that are new to me, so that kind of keeps it interesting. So it kind of feels like the new release thing that I was doing where they are new, just not really, right, new to me. So I'm starting this year, January, with Vanity Fair. Just gonna show that to you guys really quickly. It's this really cute cover. And this is a penguin book. So they take all the classics and they put them into these really pretty, like, hardbound. So it doesn't have like a cover like my other books where I can just take it off. This is just the book itself. As you can see, this book is humongous. But I am excited to read it. I'm in like 5 chapters and it's super interesting. I don't really know a lot about the book. Obviously I've heard of it, I know it's a classic, but really what got me was the cover, these pretty blue and the diamonds. So I probably won't do a book review on this, it's super long, but I'm sure I'll do some sort of kind of recap like I did with all my other books. So just wanted to let you guys know that's what I'm doing this year. So if you've ever wanted to do the read one book a month thing, it seems daunting, I think, at times, especially if you're super busy. I know my life is super busy with work, and even more work, and my daughter, my husband, and just life in general, holidays, things like that. But I do feel like a goal like this is very attainable, and I was behind, you know, a month or 2, and I did just catch up. So you don't have to feel obligated to read it in that month if you can't, but really it's more about reading 12 books in a year, and I really enjoyed the challenge in doing it. So if you want to do it. And if you take any of these suggestions and want to read them, I highly, like I said, suggest all of them. If you have questions, you can comment down below, and I would love to answer any questions you guys have about the books or really anything else. So again, thanks for watching my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I do recommend a book challenge like this. I really love doing it, and if you love to read, I think it's great for any reader, anyone trying to read more. So thanks again for watching this video, and again, feel free to subscribe or like, and I hope to see you guys soon.